Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and it's Women's History Month, and I'm here today to talk to you about Devious Maids Season 2. I do not like this season whatsoever. I think this is one of the worst seasons there is, along with Season 4. I think Season 1 and 3 are the best. And it's sad because, this show has a lot of good talent and a lot of good stars in the show. It's just the writers really dropped the ball with this season. Now, this show was created by Mark Cherry, the dude who created Desperate Housewives and Why Women Kill and The Golden Palace. The Golden Girl spinoff from back in the day. And so, there's always been a mixed bag when it came to him and his shows and stuff like that. And I was always wondering, why exactly did this show only last 4 seasons if Desperate Housewives lasted for about 7 or 8? And that's because the writing in this show is not particularly very good. Like, the writers, they basically made this. Well, here's the thing. This show was always advertised as like the Latino version of Desperate Housewives. But after doing some checking, because I've been very curious and stuff, because the Latino community actually does not like this show very much. And I was curious as to know why, because I've never seen it before until now. And it's because all the Latino people on this show are basically maids. And all the other characters are not. Well, all the other races are not. And so, like, they got really offended by that. Now, this is based on a telenovela show, a Mexican series. And I'm not sure what that depicts because I've never seen it and stuff. And I haven't done too much research on it. But I can understand why they're upset about, like, all the Latino people being maids in the show. At least the top 5 characters. The main 5 characters, the female ones. But then after, like I said before, if you ever watch my video of season 1 or my Black History Month videos of like Mark Cherry and how he writes black characters and stuff, I started doing some research on like the writers and all this other crap. And for a show that's supposed to be labeled as like, a Latino show or the Latino Desperate Housewives show, when it comes to season 2 specifically, there are only 7 Latinos in the show. But there are 16 white people. How is this supposed to be a Latino show? And when it comes to like, there's more white characters than Latino characters. And so then I looked at the writers and stuff. And this is what I found out. I read an article one time about how there's only one head Latino writer per season. That is actually kind of false. There's actually, for all 4 seasons, there's around, 1 to 2 Latino female characters. So they're not off by much. And so I'm just kind of like, oh, okay. So then I looked at the other writers and well, the rest of the writers for the entirety of the season are all white. So from those Latino women that I showed you, them combined with these writers are all the writers from season 1 all the way to season 4. And there are more white writers than there are Latino writers. And that's why it doesn't feel very Latina and everything. Now, and it's so weird because some of these writers that are Latina, they left to create their own shows. One created Vita and stuff. And, it's kind of like the same thing I criticized him about, like his black characters. He has not cast a single black writer when it comes to writing black characters. You're not going to get that real black experience. You're just going to get a white person's interpretation of it. Same thing with this show. You're just going to get a white person's interpretation of what Latinos are. And the Latinos in this show, they're pretty good characters. They have their flaws just like everybody else. But I've noticed that a lot of the Latino characters are treated like crap or they're just basically killed or written off. Same thing with like the black characters on this show. And you can tell when the Latino writers had like an influence on the actual show because the actual characters started vibing more with their roots and stuff like that. But then it's just like it wasn't enough, and it makes me wonder how much of an influence the Latino writers had on this show. Now I've said it before, the white characters in this show are terrible. There are two races, and the other ones are just like, either like do nasty sexual acts or they're just cheaters and this and that. But then I realized that the people of color actually do way worse stuff in this show. Like, like murder and all this other crap than like any of the other characters. And I'm just like, why is that? And then the people of color either get written off or they are killed by like the end of the season. And what they did to Pablo this season, oh my God, dude, they basically assassinated his character literally twice. And I'm just like, why? He's a Hispanic man. Like in season one, we didn't know nothing about him and he seemed like a pretty nice guy. But then by season two, he's literally scum. And then the thing is, it's like, when it does come to these terrible people of color written characters, they don't really have a time to truly redeem themselves because either they're written off or killed off at the end of the season, but all the white characters are redeemed in some way or another, even the races. Like the Powell family. My God, they're completely different than what they were in season one. In season one, they was disgusting. And I'll get in a little bit more a little bit later. And when they are disgusting with their racism and this and that, or their sexual acts, they write it in a very comedic way. So it tricks your mind to thinking what they're doing or what they're saying isn't as bad as you think it will be. And I'm just like, I don't get that. And then another problem I have with the show is like, the Latinos in here are all supposed to be Mexican except for Carmen. She's supposed to be the only Puerto Rican character. The problem with this show is that every Latino character they cast is not Mexican except for one. I don't understand that. You have Dominican, you have Cuban, you have Puerto Rican, and you have Sicilian. And I'm just like, not Sicilian, but Chile and everything. And I'm just kind of like, isn't this a show supposed to be about Mexican Latinos and this and that? And there's only one actual Mexican in the actual show? What the world? I don't understand Hollywood's process in not casting Mexican star. And this isn't the only show that does it. The Walking Dead does it. Well, Fear the Walking Dead. What is it? That show on Disney Channel that used to be there. It was supposed to be a Mexican family, but it's like different. They had like an Italian person and a white person, and then they had like other type of Hispanics playing. And I'm just like, what's the deal with Mexican people? I don't get it. Like, why can't you cast them in like an actual show and movie that's supposed to be their actual race? There has to be plenty of them in Hollywood. I know there has to be, right? Like, I don't get it. And so it's like, and it's weird hearing these characters saying, I am a proud Mexican. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, you're not even Mexican. You're like another race. So I don't get that crap. Like, what's that about? So, yeah, I don't understand. Like, I understand now why the Latino community is upset. I understand, like, why, people of the Mexican, like, culture do not like this show and stuff. Like, I get it. It's like, it's a sham and stuff. So this show revolves around a mystery murder, just like the first one. And that's your typical Mark Cherry formula, like with Desperate Housewives. Personally, I could have done without the mystery murder just in general, only because like I understand why it got you hooked in the first place, just like Desperate Housewives. But after a while, that formula gets very stale, and it's very stale in this season. Mark Cherry has a season 2 problem. His season 2 shows don't really do that well. Desperate Housewives season 2 sucks. I couldn't even finish watching Why Women Kill season 2. And as for this one just sucks. The mystery murder is so dragged out, so long in this season that it's frustrating. And the mystery murder here isn't even really, well, it's interesting to a degree because it reverts back to something that happened in season one that we know, but we could have done without that information. Like, it wasn't necessary. And not only that, but they, in my opinion, they have ruined the character of Marcel. Marcel she was a very cool character in season one. She was determined to, like, get her son justice because he's rotting away in jail for a murder he did not commit. She went undercover, changed her name, like all kind of stuff. And she was a really good, strong character who was a college professor who did all this detective work to figure out, what really happened and pretended to be a maid. As much as I love Anna Ortiz, they really didn't need her for this season because I felt like her story was completed. They didn't even have her son in this season. That was the whole motivation. And then they kept degrading her character season after season after season and making her so annoying that fans have literally turned on her. That when they got to the cliffhanger of season four, people didn't care what happened to her character and stuff because they had pretty much just degraded her character from that strong woman she used to be in that of season one. And so the murder mystery is just very pointless in this season. Now, I'll get to her a little bit later and stuff. Let's see which family I'll go through first. I'll go and talk about one other thing I want to point out about this mystery murder. The main one, what it had to do with like Opal and like, Marcel's like, fiance and stuff. It's like one of the main problems, other than it being drawn out and not really going nowhere, is that it doesn't connect to the rest of the cast. One of the good things about season one murder mystery and season three is that, other members of the show are connected to it in some way or another, or they help out. With this one just doesn't connect to nobody except for the pals. And they're not really all that like involved in it until like, the end. But like Rosie has nothing to do with this. Zola doesn't have anything to do with this. Valentina doesn't have anything to do with this. And Carmen doesn't either. And you would think Valentina would have something to do with it because, her boyfriend is Opal's son, but even that's not really like connected and stuff. And in fact, Opal and her son rarely interact in the show, and he's rarely ever home and stuff. And it's just like things just don't connect the way they did very well in like, the first season. Even the recurring characters don't connect to this murder mystery. And not only that, but like with that black family and stuff, they don't interact with no other characters on this show except for like Rosie and of course like, Spence. That's only because Spence is connected to Rosie. And it's just weird how everything is so separate this season. I guess they wanted to try something new, but it really didn't work at all. Rosie. Rosie played by Dana Ramirez. Now, this season starts off with her being in ICE. She got deported last season. Her character is supposed to be Mexican, but she's really Dominican. And she had an affair with her boss in season one, and it pissed off his wife. Now, the wife named Perry, she is racist, and she is a terrible character who cheats up and down on her husband. She's the one who started cheating first. But then, so when her husband Spence started cheating, she got jealous and wanted to find out who. When she found out it was Rosie, she had her deported. Now, Perry is actually not in this season. In fact, she's not even really in the show no more. After season one, she booked her own show. That lasted for one season, so she left. And I get why she left. Would you rather play a recurring character who's racist and terrible, or would you rather have your own show where you're the lead? I get that. Only problem is, her show didn't last long. And so they wrote her off after like one or two episodes this season. Now, last season, she went to Mexico and smuggled Rosie's son illegally, but they did it in such a funny way that you forget that, hey, it's illegal. You see what I'm saying? When they try to do this for like white characters, they always put that humor in it, so you don't think what they do is bad. Like Perry's racism, her racism is terrible, but they do it in a funny way that's supposed to make you laugh, and then you kind of just like, but it's not funny. But they try to trick you and stuff, and also her cheating ways and stuff. So Rosie got herself a immigration lawyer, and they got her out of ICE. She's been there for 3 months. And so when she was there, she came back thinking she could work. Oh no, she went to go visit Spence and Perry and stuff. But Perry is shocked to find out she's out of ICE and not back in Mexico. So Perry tells Spence, plain and simple, Rosie's not gonna work here, and you can't have no communication with her. And if you do, I'll tell everybody that you slept with the maid, and that you neglect your son and all this other stuff, and I'll take full custody of him and I'll divorce you and everything. At this point in time, he is a struggling actor, where Perry is a rising actress and stuff. So he basically is rude to Rosie and telling he doesn't want nothing to do with her and this and that. It breaks her heart, and she goes to work for like another family. Personally, they should have just recast the role of Perry, because Perry could have added an interesting element of like a love triangle and all this other stuff. And then once Rosie found out she had her deported, but Rosie never found out she had her deported. Nobody finds out what Perry did. So it's like you had this juicy material and you don't play on it and stuff. And they should have just recasted the role, even though I do like the actress in this role. So Rosie works for the Miller family. And the Miller family, the Reggie Miller is her deportation, immigration like lawyer dude. And I've talked about the Miller family in detail in my Black History Month. They are terrible. They finally added a black family, a rich black family in this show. And it's just as bad as it was with the Applewhaites in Desperate Housewives Season 2. Mark Cherry cannot write black characters. He has no black writers. And so this family is atrocious. Basically, him and Rosie date, and it turns out the nephew is evil. Surprise, surprise. But that's not the only evil person here. Kenneth is the main family member of that family. He's the one who's rich. And his wife died a long time ago, and he had a stroke. And he's married to a young trophy wife who used to be a stripper. His wife, Dee Dee, is having an affair with that of Kenneth's doctor, his therapy doctor. So the doctor is basically lying, saying Kenneth can't do this and he can't do that, and just so he can have Dee Dee. Well, Rosie is an all-star in this season. She is determined to help Kenneth out for his mobility, instead of him just being a vegetable in a wheelchair. She finds him another doctor, and the therapy works to where he's able to walk around, move his hands, type on a computer, and eventually talk later on in the season. And not only that, but she discovers that Dee Dee is cheating and stuff, and she confronts Dee Dee about it. Now, the problem with Rosie is that she's very hypocritical. She's always coming down hard on people who cheat, but yet she had an affair with Spence last season, and the way they had their affair made no sense. They're basically trying to make Spence and Rosie the most lovable couple there is, but the way they fell in love was just always weird to me. And so Lucinda is the daughter of Kenneth. She's 40 years old. She still stays there. And her and Dee Dee do not get along. Now, this would have been great in drama if those two had more screen time together. Basically, they just argue in the first episode. That's it. And after that, they really don't have no more scenes together for the most part. So they robbed us of that whole, oh, here's the older daughter, you're the younger trophy wife. That's great material, but they didn't play on that. Instead, there's a story with Lucinda to where she was pregnant at 15 years old, and Kenneth didn't want her to have the baby, so he made her give it up for adoption. Turns out the daughter found her a year ago, but Kenneth made her go away, saying your mom don't want nothing to do with you, but he lied, making Kenneth look like a terrible person. Ugh. And so, and there's no humor to make this family look like, more loving like all the other characters and stuff. So anyway, Rosie is determined to bring the daughter and the granddaughter together. So she finds her. And Reggie knew about all this but kept it secret. Because Reggie's been, he's planning something devious. And so Rosie, as great as she is, she finds the granddaughter and brings her to Lucinda. The granddaughter that basically punches her in the face. And because of what Kenneth told her. And Lucinda basically says, she never knew that her father did that, and she wants nothing more but to have her daughter in her life. So then Lucinda decides to take matters in her own hand and pick up a bamboo stick and basically gonna beat the crap out of Kenneth, who's in a wheelchair and very, very old, and who suffered from like a stroke. What in the world? So this is apparently what black people do when they're mad. They turn into barbarians and pick up a club and want to beat somebody and stuff. Seriously, they needed a black writer in this show to be all like, hey, that's not cool, man. We don't do that. Also, when it comes to Lucinda, she spanked Miguel. Miguel is the son of Rosie, the one that Perry smuggled over. He was basically playing with like a remote control car. It hit her at first and she got mad and basically just shouted at him. Then it happened a second time and she fell over a chair or a table or something like that. So then she spanked him. You don't spank somebody else's kid. And Rosie does not like that. And the way Lucinda tried to defend herself just made her look more terrible, writing her to be a terrible person. When Rosie tells that of her friends, okay, here's the thing. Marcel is Puerto Rican and I think has a touch of black in her, the actress, but she plays the Mexican. Carmen is Puerto Rican and played by a Puerto Rican. Rosie is supposed to be Mexican but played by a Dominican actress. And that of Zola is supposed to be Mexican and is Dominican. Now, Zola's all like, he deserved that spanking, nothing wrong with spanking. Why they have to write the Dominican Republic lady as being all like, oh yeah, you gotta beat that kid? Because that's something they think all black parents and stuff do. And cause that's how they were in the past. A lot of parents did, even white and everything, But then Carmen's all like, oh no, it's wrong and blah, 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 and stuff like that. And so did Marcel. And I'm just like, why? Why does Zola have to be the only one be all like, yeah, spank that behind? And I'm just like, why did they write the Afro-Latino people and the black people like this on this show? I can't stand it. Anyway. So you think Lucinda would be spending the rest of her time with her daughter on the show? Nope. They just wrote the daughter on the granddaughter off. And it's like, what's the point in bringing her on there? What's the point in saying Lucinda got knocked up at 15? Why degrade her character like that? If there wasn't going to be a major plot line in the show, why even add it in the show? So then we get to Reggie, and Reggie basically wants Kenneth's money. He knew about the affair, and he was able to get Dee Dee out the house because of it, because Kenneth basically just kicked her out. Then as for Lucinda, something happened to where he froze her out of her assets, and then because Kenneth is, so disabled, Reggie took over the estate. And he basically kicked everybody out. He put Kenneth in the old folks home. Lucinda's kicked out. Dee Dee's kicked out. And he's going to rearrange the house and do everything he wanted. He wants revenge because when his mother was sick with cancer, Kenneth didn't pay her medical bills. Instead, he bought a painting that cost an extremely lot of money. So he's been wanting revenge ever since then. Also, when it comes to Spence for the most part is staying out of Rosie's life. But then he finds out that Spence is Rosie's ex. So he stages an incident where he goes to Spence at a restaurant and basically berates that of Rosie, which causes Spence to punch him. It gets recorded and put on the internet, making him look like an abuser and stuff. And Reggie is just terrible until, of course, Rosie saves the day when she finds out everything and tells Dee Dee and Lucinda, and Kenny is not Kenny, but Reggie is pretty much in trouble now. And I'm just like, why in the world would you write this family to be this way for? I get it. It's juicy and it's good for drama. I would have been okay with it if they would have remained on the show to the end of the series and then later redeemed them. Dee Dee is only redeemed because she found out she got kicked out of her fortune. Lucinda, it's just Lucinda in there, I think. And Kenneth did some terrible things in the past, but he doesn't really atone for it. Him being having a stroke does not atone for all the bad stuff he did. You know what I'm saying? Now, Rosie is probably the sweetest character on the show. However, she's the biggest stereotype there is. Basically, she is an illegal immigrant from Mexico. And when she came here, something about she didn't know she had to fill out paperwork or something. Her character is very aloof in the head. Like, she doesn't know a lot, especially a lot of American phrases, which I'm thinking to myself, as young as she is, she should know something. And it's weird because she's just written to be the biggest stereotype. She has the strongest, thickest accent, which I think the actress is putting on a faker accent and stuff than her normal voice. She's not very bright. And not only that, but it's like, I don't know, like, I understand stereotypes are based on fact, but not everybody is like that. So they didn't have to write her character like that. In season 1, she was very aloof in the head. And in season 2, she gets a bit better. She's a bit smarter, and you can tell that people complain about her character because she literally said that, she thought Reggie assumed she was just another dumb, like, immigrant and everything. That tells me that line was written because people had problems with her character. And so she gets a whole lot better and smarter in this season. I think in season 3, she's pretty good as well. But then once you get the season, no, what season was that? Season 3, I think she's a little bit dumb again. But then season 4, I think she gets a little bit smarter again. So they keep, well, it's one of those two. They keep going back and forth because they keep wanting to make her like a stereotype and for comedic relief. But that when they do that stereotype for comedic relief, it's just mocking that culture and that race. And I just don't understand why they would do that. Now, at the end, her and Spence do get together and they get married until she gets shot by somebody. And then she's placed in a coma for 4 months after that. Carmen. Carmen redeemed herself so much this season. Last season, she was just a very selfish person, but you get why she was selfish. She wanted nothing more to be a singer. She's close to 40 and she's 37. And by that time, it's like, your music career is pretty much going to be over with if you don't make it in your early 20s and stuff. So she is written very well in season 2. But then when you get into season 3 and season 4, they assassinate her character once again. So basically, she is still working for Alejandro this season. And with this season, it starts off with her and her pretend engagement to Alejandro, who is gay. Alejandro is technically African-Cuban, I believe it is. But he's Afro-Latino, I know for that sure. But I believe he's playing a Mexican. And so he is gay in real life. And when he got found out, he had to stage like a fake marriage. This causes Carmen to break up with her boyfriend Sam from last season, a black character who was very good, who was written off at the end of season 1. And so Carmen's all for this fake marriage because it's gonna start her music career until like she meets Alejandro's ex, and Alejandro's having feelings for his ex. And so he wants to call off this fake marriage, but she's all like, yo, what about my music career, blah, blah, stuff like that. He's all like, he'll still help her out. Well, he's unable to do anything because when he's hosting an event at his house, these robbers bust in. And these robbers are interesting. They're kind of like Robin Hood and his merry men. Basically, they steal from the rich and they give it to the poor. And so these robbers with their guns accidentally fire off a couple of rounds and it hits Alejandro and kills him. This is a problem for Carmen in Odessa. Odessa is like his Russian white house manager. They now have no place to live because they live in maids and stuff. And so they don't know what they're gonna do. Well, Carmen B's a little selfish in trying to sing at Alejandro's funeral just so music label people can like hire her. But she doesn't do that because Odessa pretty much talks to her and she realizes she is gonna miss Alejandro and stuff. He was like really nice to her and stuff. And so Odessa is now written off very early on, and Alejandro was killed after episode 2. Just got his behind right off the show. And I'm just like, why? Is it because he's Afro-Latino? And so like Carmen has to find a new place to live and work. So she starts working for Spence since, Rosie isn't there and Perry is now gone off the show. And her and Spence have a really good relationship. They're just like, he's the boss, she's the maid, and nothing happens between those two whatsoever. This pisses off Rosie. She's like, why would you work for Mr. Spence? I hate when she says it like that. Mr. Spence. Like, oh my God, I hate when she does that. And so, like, I don't understand why Rosie's upset. Carmen's not the type of person who gets in relationships. She explained that last season. It took her a long time to get in a relationship with Sam because of her last marriage and stuff. And so, but Rosie just is like fears. I'm like, you have to find a new job, you need to find a new place to live, you need to get away from him, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, I don't understand this crap. Like, she's friends with Carmen. She knows Carmen ain't gonna do that. Carmen will sleep around and use a man for whatever it is means she need, but she don't need Spence for nothing. Plus, Spence ain't got that much money anyway. Well, since Spence is barely in the show, they had to write something for her. In comes Ty. Ty is the nephew of Spence. And basically, something happened where he has to go live with Spence. He had a nervous breakdown and tried to off himself with pills. Why? Because it's revealed he's one of those robbers and he couldn't deal with the death of that singer man. So he tried to off himself. And so Ty is a very disturbed character. He has a psychological problem. He was in rehab, and I always wonder how are those two related, because Spence is white and Ty is Jewish. And of course, they had to write the person of color, the Jewish dude, as a terrible character. He starts having feelings for Carmen, because basically, Carmen started being nice to him. At first, they couldn't get along, but then she starts being nice to him and trying to help him out with dealing with his crap. He takes this as affection and basically has an obsession with her to where he doesn't want no man to be near her and stuff like that. And he's basically stalking her as she keeps telling him, yo, I don't want nothing to do with you. He thinks Spence wants her and tries to ruin things for Spence. He is a terrible character. And it's even to the point where he has his friends rob another house. It's going to be Spence's house. He's going to make it look like he's going to save Carmen and have her fall in love with him. This somewhat happens to where, Carmen does appreciate what he did for her, but she doesn't fall in love with him. Problem is, Carmen was at the other house that was robbed, and she was so scared for her life that where she's going to take matters in her own hand. She picks up a knife and stabs one of the robbers. And this causes a huge problem for that one robber who got stabbed and some other characters in the show I'll get to a little bit later. And so now Carmen, when it comes to her and I say her being redeemed, she helped Spence out a lot. Spence became an alcoholic. Basically, Perry dumped him anyway off screen and took full custody of his son. And, I'm all like, but he stayed away from Rosie, so why was this still written like that? But they had to write her off, and they figured they'll do that to give him something to do and keep him in the show. And so he becomes an alcoholic. She becomes his drinking buddy. And it's funny when those two are like hungover and stuff like that. But then she realizes he needs help. So she goes to Rosie so he can get some help because Rosie is the only person he will listen to. So he goes to rehab. But Perry is in another country filming a movie and she needs somebody to watch their son. In comes Carmen when Carmen does not like kids whatsoever. There's a pretty hilarious scene what she does when she has to babysit the kid when she had to go on an audition for like a commercial or something like that because she's no longer thinking about the whole music thing right now. And so like basically Ty decides like the walls are coming down on him. His friends have now all fled the country because their parents, once realizing what they did, they just made them flee the country. The dude who got stabbed is still in the country, but Ty decides, oh, since Spence has a gun, I'm gonna take matters in my own hand and eliminate the competition. So while trying to kill Spence, he just ends up having a drive-by and just shooting off a bunch of rounds. Um, and that's how Rosie ended up getting like shot, and another character ended up dying, and another character ended up getting hit and everything. And so when it comes to that of Ty, it's revealed in season 3 that he was found and arrested. And I'm all like, we couldn't see him get arrested on screen. We couldn't see him like, the cops like, do anything to him. And it's like you have to kill the Afro Latino dude. You have to like write off the black dude. You have to kill the Mexican character. And I'm just kind of like, I don't get it. But in terms of Carmen, they really did a number on her in redeeming her character this season. And Rosalind Sanchez, oh my God, dude, she breathes so much life into the Carmen character. She is a gift to this show, like when it comes to that character. And she appeared in Desperate Housewives as Carmen. I'm assuming it's the same character. Valentina, who is played by Eddie Gunham, I think that's how you say her last name. She is the daughter of Zola. She is the only Mexican actress on this show playing a Mexican character, the only one. And the way they wrote her coming back, I was just kind of like, why? Why'd you have to degrade her character? In season 1, she was a pretty good girl who just wanted to fall in love with a guy. But her whole character just revolved around chasing after this one dude. At the end of the season, they go to like Africa together. While in Africa, because she wanted to be a fashion designer. While in Africa, Remy, he's the one who's like a medical person, stuff like that. She gets to the point where she's all like, you don't spend enough time with me. What about my dreams? What about my goals? Like, how come you don't spend no time with me? Making her sound very selfish. And so he wanted to stay another year in Africa. She's all like, nope, because you're not spending time with me and I want to be a fashion designer and blah, blah, stuff like that. And so she leaves him to come back to America. While here, she doesn't do anything in the fashion industry. Nothing whatsoever. So what was the point of that argument? And it made her just look very selfish because here he is, a medical person wanting to help out sick people. And she's all like, what about me? What about me? What about me? Completely different from that of her character last season. Basically, they put her in another relationship. When she starts working first, Genevieve has her live with her, but Zola doesn't want that. And she doesn't talk to her mom no more because she's pissed at her mom. And so she starts working for the Powells, of all people, a racist and a dude who records people doing it. And so, like, she works for them, but then the mom finds out and steals a Fabergé egg from the Powells. The pool boy finds that out and tells Valentina, which she wants nothing to do with her mom. And there, Valentina just, she falls in love with, like, the pool boy and everything. And so, like, Ethan is his name. And he's kind of like a bad boy type dude. He doesn't like Remy whatsoever. And for the most part, but he is a pretty nice guy. Just has a bad boy edge to him. Well, it turns out that, oh, by the way, Valentina doesn't really have no character arc in this season whatsoever. And so basically, when she starts to suspect something's going on with Evelyn, she brings Adrian back home by like, oh, your wife misses you, blah, blah, stuff like that. That's really the only good thing she does, really. Other than that, she doesn't really have a story arc whatsoever, and it's really insulting. And so, like, basically, it turns out that Ethan is part of that Robin Hood gang. The reason why they steal from rich people, they keep half of the money. See, they get jewelry, right? And then they pawn it and they get half the money. And the ones they can't pawn because it's too recognizable, they just give the homeless people on the street. And so the reason why he steals is because he's poor. His mom's a maid, and maids only get paid about $20 to $30 and stuff like that. And so like he needs money to go to college and everything. So that's why he steals. But Ty, well, first his other friend messes things up when he kills Alejandro. Then Ty messes everything up when he goes nutty in the head, which causes that of Ethan to get stabbed. Now, the whole Ethan thing is weird because he's part of the murder mystery that has to do with Marcel and her new fiance and stuff. Because he witnessed the murder that happened all those years ago. And so it turns out that he's going to inherit it, a lot of money once the husband of, or the soon-to-be husband of Marcel dies. You think he would be, oh, okay, let me just off this guy, right? So I can get that money. Nope, nothing whatsoever. And so basically he's stabbed and he needs somebody to fix him up. So Valentina takes him to Remy. They don't know what the world he did until he finally confesses. And when they see the blood in Valentina's car, the cops arrest her. But she will not spill the beans about what happened, which is really stupid. She's gonna go to jail for this dude she barely knows. And so, like, her parents make her confess and everything. By this time, Ethan's all patched up. He goes back to where Marcel lives at. He steals a bunch of money from, like, the house and everything, and he splits the country. And that's it. He's just written off the show. So he got away, him and his friends got away with robbing people's homes and, like, what is it? Accomplished a murder. And he's just written off the show like that. And I'm just kind of like, what in the world? And then so, of course, Valentina gets with Remy at the end of the season. What the heck kind of story arc is this for her? Like, she had such a better one, a more interesting one last season. And her mom barely have any interaction this season. It's almost like they just want to degrade certain characters on this show and elevate other ones that really don't either have something to do with the show or don't. And I just don't understand that crap. It's like, why do this to her? And so when it comes to next season, I'll spill a little bit of what happens to her next season. Oh, she's written off the show in the third season. She appears in like one episode, maybe two at the most, and her and Remy are written off the complete series, and she's no longer on the show. She doesn't even appear in season 4. Till this day, nobody knows why she left the show. Was it her? Was it the writers? Was it the creators? Like, why? Nobody knows what the heck happened. And it's just like, it's puzzling how this show downgraded, because it lost 1 million viewership after season 1. In season 1, they had anywhere between like 300 million to 200 million. At the start of season 2, they only had 100 million and stuff, and it stayed that way. Then by the other season, it dipped down a whole lot more than that. The pals that Valentina worked for, Adrian and Evelyn, are 100% redeemed from their disgusting behavior of season 1. I am very shocked and surprised by this because they went out their way to make these two better characters for the most part the entirety of like the series. And for the most part, their characters really didn't serve no more purpose because their story arc ended, in my opinion, season one. But they had to find a way to keep the stars. And yeah, I do like the actors and the actress who plays these characters. But it's just weird, and now they're completely different from what they used to be. Evelyn is no longer racist. She was very racist in season one. She'll make a sly remark here and there in season two, but that's about it. But for the most part, she's no longer racist. Adrian is no longer that disgusting, like, sexist pimp person he was before. Like, he would always hire prostitutes, and like he would, like, what is it? He would have like all these like fancy wealthy people come to his place to mess with these prostitutes, and they'll go to a certain room and he will record them and keep it on tape and watch this stuff. And it's just like, it's disgusting how he was in season one. Season two, none of that. Basically in season two, when they had a house arrest, this caused him to panic so much that they made him the comedic relief of the show. He is so paranoid that he's always thinking somebody's breaking into the house, this and that. So they hire a live-in bodyguard. And there's something shady when it comes to this bodyguard because he ends up sleeping with Evelyn. So she has an affair on him after he used to have an affair on her in season one. Now in season two, they were better, but she just starts having an affair with this younger man. And so, like, in order to have her affair, which, yes, that is bad, you know what I'm saying? But if you knew what she went through in season one, because her husband did not touch her for 25 years because their child died when she turned her head and got hit by a car, and he just wanted nothing to do with her. He'll mess around with tons of women while she just stayed to herself. And so now she's just like loving this and everything, right? But she needs Adrian out the house. So when he ends up shooting her by mistake, because he thought she was an intruder, they knew he needed to go to some type of like a retreat type thing. So that's where he's at, trying to get better. But that was all just a ruse by her and the bodyguard. Now the bodyguard, when trying to get her jewelry back from that homeless woman, he said one way or another, I'm gonna get this jewelry back, lady. And it makes you wonder, whoa, what's going on with him? Well, when Valentina starts to suspect some things are going on, she brings Adrian back home. Adrian is suspecting that his wife is cheating and wants to catch her in the act. It turns out that the bodyguard lied this entire time about his name and his profession. He's actually a con man. He finds these wealthy women who are married. He has an affair with them, and then he blackmails them for tons of money. She doesn't know this, but Adrian found that out by hiring a PI. And so Adrian wrote him a big check, told him to just like, break it off with his wife so it doesn't like hurt her feelings too much. And, say like you have another, like you've been called back to like the military or something like that. And so he leaves. But Adrian had his PI whoop the crap out of him and rip the check up. And so this is basically their storyline for this season, but then it gets more interesting when it gets to that of Marcel. And because like we find out who hit their kid with the car and drove off and stuff. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But first, let's go to Zola. Zola, played by Judy Reeves. She plays a Mexican character, but she's really Dominican. Her daughter, Valentina, like I said before, is Mexican, playing a Mexican, and her husband, Paulo, is supposed to be Mexican, but played by a Cuban actor. Anyway, they treat Zola so bad on this show, it's a shame. They need justice for this character. She is the one who's always dealing with everybody's problems, and she's always having to deal with other people's problems in this show. And it's like she's never really given a story arc of her own for the most part, and when she does, it's back to her dealing with everybody else's problems. So in this season, she's still overbearing and still trying to run her daughter's life, which causes her daughter to go to the pals. This causes her husband to be all like, you know what, I can't take it. You won't let me eat what I want, and you keep telling me what to do. You chased our daughter away. I'm leaving you. So this is terrible, and she's upset about this. But then it turns out that her husband Paulo was cheating on her the entire time because now he has a new girlfriend and he's been cheating on her in the past. And they just pretty much tried to assassinate the character of Paulo. Paulo, we knew nothing about in like season one, other than he makes rude jokes. But other than that, he seemed like a pretty good guy, but we knew nothing about him. Now they decided to write something for him, and because he's a person of color and everything, just like the bodyguard, because the bodyguard of the Pals, he's like Muslim or something like that. So of course he had to be a terrible person, so they had to write him as a terrible person, and they wrote Paulo as like a terrible person. So he is a cheater, and when we find out in season 3, spoiler alert, he slept with Zola's sister. So yeah, so Zola decides, all right, I'm gonna start dating this other guy who's like a professional chef and really famous. And so she starts dating him, but then her story arc is basically dealing with Genevieve. Genevieve is not as ditzy as she used to be in the other season. I'm so glad they didn't write her to be as ditzy as they used to, and I'm so glad, like, they stopped trying to make her the comedic relief, because Susan Lucci is a great dramatic actress, but she's not very good with the comedy and stuff. And so, like, Genevieve has, I think, a kidney problem or something like that. She needs a new kidney. So they've been trying to find donors for her, but they can't find one and stuff. And this really upsets, like, what's her name? Zola. Now, her and Genevieve constantly go back and forth at it and stuff like that. It's even to the point where Genevieve's mother comes to stay because Zola calls her because she needs a kidney and stuff. And Genevieve did not want her mother there. Well, it turns out her mother is very abrasive and everything, and she's rude and she's racist and all this other crap, and she's just like an annoying character that Genevieve puts on Zola to take care of, while Genevieve goes to like a spa or something like that. And so, like, it turns out Genevieve's real name isn't even Genevieve, it's Eunice, but she had it changed and stuff. And it's just, they can't give Zola her own storyline, and it's just really terrible. And so they find a donor for the kidney is Pablo, but Pablo will only donate it if Zola will take him back. And so, like, that just makes him look even worse. So anyway, while she's dating that chef, she ends up sleeping with Pablo at one point in time, because he's come back and he's all like, baby, I want you back, blah, blah, blah. So they sleep together. But then she finds out that the only reason why he came back is because his new girlfriend kicked him out of the place and he had nowhere to stay. Why are they doing this to this character for? I don't understand. And so now he won't give the kidney because he got kicked out of Zola's place and everything. And so now this makes him look like an even worse character. Well, it gets even worse than that. She's now pregnant and she don't know which is the baby's father. Well, at the end of the season, I think they were able to find a kidney for her eventually, because Pablo ends up getting shot. And at the end of the season, remember when I said Ty was going around shooting people and stuff? And so, like, because of that, we don't know if Pablo is going to survive the next season or not. A little spoiler alert, Pablo dies off screen. Zola doesn't really seem to care whatsoever, and it's Pablo's baby, and she has to tell her new boyfriend. I don't understand. I understand making the show juicy and dramatic and all this other stuff, but the way they go about it and the way they go about the Zola character is just weird, man. They can't write her character very well for some reason. She always has to deal with everybody else's crap, and that's all she does. She's literally the mother to like everybody. And like, the worst thing about the Zola character is that she was going to tell her new boyfriend that she slept with another man and that, and stuff like that. But when he tells her, oh, I'm going to take you to Paris, then she's all like suddenly just doesn't want to tell him no more. And it's just like, really? Like, this is what you do? This, I get this character's poor. I get this character's hardworking. I get this character needs to have some type of fun in her life. But really, you're gonna deceive the man just so you can go to Paris? Like, why would they write her character like that? And now that just leaves us with Marcel and the whole murder mystery. Marcel, like I said before, did his whole detective thing in season 1 to get her son prove his innocence. It worked, but now her son's been written off the show. There really was no point for her because even the family she stayed with, they've been written off the show and they won't come back to season 3. And so, what exactly did they have for her to do? Well, they decided to reinvent her character, if you will. She's no longer a college professor. That storyline just went away. And now she's writing a book about how she pretended to be a maid and solved the murder, this and that. She ended up meeting a man in off screen during the 3 months that Rosie was like, in a detention center. And so her fiance, and I can't even think of his name right now. Oh, that's bad. I can't even think of it. He's a really uninteresting character. But basically, the murder mystery started off with him in the beginning. He's there with his maid and his wife, Darla, and his maid, Opal, and their son is there, who is Ethan. And so they Ethan witnessed a murder. And so this whole time there's like a huge murder mystery built around that. But it's extremely slow. It takes up the entire season to find out what the heck happens. So here's the thing. When the guy met Marcel, he proposed to her like right away and she said yes. This is really shocking that she would just jump in the arms of like a rich man and fall madly in love and like this and that. And because he's super rich, he's richer than the Powells and everything. And he used to be friends with them. And so then, of course, when she finds out a weird note like she did in the other season, she starts to investigate. So now she's back on being this whole detective type thing. And okay, it makes sense because, she has to solve this murder mystery and it's a murder mystery this season. So somebody has to solve it. So they hooked her, put her character with these characters. Well, it turns out that she assumed Opal and this man was having an affair. No, it was actually Opal and Darla, the wife, having the affair. But things get so crazy because Opal is a very dark character and there's a bunch of lies going back and forth. When Opal runs over that of the fiance dude, he's put in the hospital and then they don't know who did it until Marcel looked at the tape footage. So then instead of going to the cops, she decides to confront Opal herself. That's what Marcel do. And talking about, I'm gonna call the police on you. Well, of course the woman has a weapon and stuff. And so while at the hospital at some point, the dude who she's supposed to get married to, he wants to marry her right away. And he doesn't even want a prenup or nothing like that. Which she finds kind of weird. Why doesn't this dude want a prenup? And he's so rich and everything. Well, when he's drugged with all the pain medication, he reveals he killed somebody. And so now she's trying to figure out this double murder thing. Who killed, because the wife was supposedly a suicide, but it wasn't. And so she's trying to figure out what's going on. And it's just a weird situation to put her in, you know what I'm saying? So at some point in time, Opal and everything, who's son with Ethan, and Ethan leaves her, and then Opal tries to kill Marcel only for her to, I think, get away or something like that, but then to come back and all this other crap, and she basically goes there to shoot Marcel, but Marcel gets the gun from her somehow, only to be stupid enough to leave it on the table, walk away, and then call the cops so the lady can pick up the gun, point it at Marcel, but then take her own life. Because she is the one who killed Darla and everything. This is what the whole murder mystery thing is about. Darla knew something that the fiance man did, killing somebody. So at some point in time, she started having a relationship with Opal. But she tells Opal that, look, man, I'm not even a lesbian. I was just playing you. I just wanted to have some fun. I was like desperate and upset. This upsets Opal, and she throws her over the I think it's like a bridge or something like that, and she dies. And so they covered it up. And in order to cover it up, the husband dude gave Ethan his fortune if he dies. And so this is when she tries to run him over with the car, but he ends up surviving. So then it turns out that who he killed. See, he was driving a car with his wife. His wife decides to tell him that, like, she's been having an affair with Opal. This distracts him and he takes his eyes off the road. We see a little boy in the street. This little boy is the son of Adrian and that of Evelyn. And so that's why he stopped being friends with them, because he just had a hit and run and would not tell them the truth. So Marcel, being who she is, forces him to tell the Powells what happened. Adrian gets upset and tries to slash him with like an ancient dagger. Now, this ancient dagger is something that the wife gave him for a gift. I don't understand why it's sharp. When you look at it, the blade looks like rock and everything, like marble. Like it's thousands of years old, if not millions. So somehow it's able to slash him. I'm like, oh great, Adrian's about to kill somebody again, like he did last season when he killed the dude who killed his maid mistress and everything, which he got away with murder because the maids helped him get away with it. But no, it just slashes him. He's upset, and him and Evelyn, and that's it. And so the fiance dude, husband or whatever he is, because I think they did get married, he's in jail now. And I'm just kind of like, this murder mystery just was not interesting enough. It was too dragged out. It connected to the Powells, so you think you would have somebody who will work for them. Like, why couldn't it be Valentina or something like that? Then that way she could have found out, told the Powells and this and that. Because they just crammed Marcel into this storyline and into the second season, and it literally made no sense. But then in season 3, her storyline gets slightly better because she has a more interesting job, but they still degrade her character for what she does. But then by season 4, there is really no point in having her on the show. And they got to the point where they started making her annoying to where a lot of fans just did not like her. And so when it just comes to season 2, season 2 is just a mess and everything. The writing is very sloppy. They wrote every person of color to be a degrading person. And, I just don't get this. Like, I don't get this. I really don't know why they would do. Well, I know why they would do it. It's pretty obvious and everything. But it's like, it was messed up. Because this was supposed to be a show for Latino people and stuff, And how are they supposed to celebrate this show when the show degrades, like, their heritage and their culture and their people and stuff like that, And the worst part is like Eva Longoria is an executive producer on this show. I get why Mark Cherry does what he does, but for her to do this, like, you think she would have stepped in and be like, no, don't do that, or write this a little bit better. Like, you know what I'm saying? And because she's defended this show in the past, but then she also pointed out the flaws that the show has. Only one of the stars has ever defended this show back in the day when it was on. And that's the only reason why she defended it, because she was on the show. And I get why. She didn't want to lose her job, you know what I'm saying? But other than that, nobody really defends this show. Nobody really talks about this show anymore. It's almost like this show has been forgotten about. And it only ended a couple of years ago. However, despite the flaws, the many flaws that this show has, I do like the fact that this is a female-led show, that there are 5 leads, later on reduced to 4, and they're all women of color. They're all Latino or African Latino. And that's very rare to see in like a television show. I just wish that it could have spoke stronger to not only just women, but the Latino community and stuff. Because when it does come to these characters, this show doesn't even really feel Latina and stuff. Like if you watch the show called Vita, which is created by one of the former writers from season one, that show very much feels like a Latino show. Like you feel like you're in a different place, even though it's set in America and stuff, because they're in California, and you get a little taste of everything, you know. Yeah, and then you even get more Spanish speaking in that show. Here, the only time they ever speak Spanish is when it's like, you know, a gardener and he doesn't speak English, which I noticed in these shows, they always make the gardener only speak Spanish and they always make them overweight for some reason. See, I think what it was when it came to this season is that they tried to go big, too big. There are three murder mysteries going on in the entirety of this one season. And it was just too much for them to handle in 13 episodes. And neither murder mystery really was all that interesting, to tell you the truth. It was just a point of pointless characters being introduced into the show when they should have focused on the main characters that they had. I'm glad they added the Miller family, but the way they wrote them was terrible to the point where I just wish they was left out. When it comes to Opal, her son, and that one guy, they could have let them completely out of the show. They could have left Spencer's nephew Ty out of this show and just focus on the storylines from last season, building them more up and, you know, changing and twisting some stuff around to make them more interesting. But they didn't do that. Happy Women's History Month, everybody. All right, well, I'll talk to you later. Bye.